Hey there, folks. Today we're diving deep into the dark world of Ireland's most notorious crime syndicate, the Kinihan cartel. These guys are the real deal, a global criminal enterprise making millions, maybe even billions, from their illicit activities. From their humble beginnings on the streets of Dublin, they've climbed the ladder of organized crime to become a force to be reckoned with. The Kinahans are known for their ruthlessness, their vast network of collaborators, and their ability to evade law enforcement for years. But their luck might be running out. In recent years, the walls have been closing in as authorities around the world crack down on their operations. We'll be looking at the key players, their most notorious crimes, and the international manhunt that's put the Kinahan name on front pages across the globe. This is a story of power, greed, and the high price of a life entangled in the criminal underworld. So buckle up, things are about to get interesting. A legacy forged in blood and cocaine. The Kinahan cartel is a family affair, starting with Christy Kinahan Sr. He rose from petty crime to become one of Ireland's most powerful criminals. Christy envisioned a global empire built on drugs and fear. His sons, Daniel and Christy Jr., expanded the enterprise. The cartel flooded Europe with cocaine, buying influence and silencing opposition. But every empire faces a reckoning. For the Kinahans, it was a bloody feud with the Hutches. This feud exposed the brutal reality of their reign. From Dublin streets to global empire. The Kinahan story begins in the gritty streets of Dublin's south inner city. In the 70s, young Christy Kinahan is drawn to local gangs. He starts with petty theft but has ambition and strategy. By the 80s, Ireland faces a heroin epidemic. Christy seizes the opportunity to climb the criminal ladder. He builds a drug network, gaining respect as a businessman. He learns the importance of discretion, avoiding the spotlight. While others brag, Christy quietly amasses power. By the 90s, during the Celtic Tiger boom, he's ready. He expands internationally, forging alliances with Colombian cartels. The small-time crook from Dublin is now a global player. Section 2. The Making of a Godfather. Christy Kinahan wasn't just a shrewd businessman, he was a master manipulator. He understood the power of loyalty and fear. He rewarded loyalty with wealth and protection, but dealt with betrayal brutally. His sons, Daniel and Christy Jr., learned this code. They grew up in the family business. Daniel inherited his father's ambition. He was groomed to lead. Christy Jr. was known for his ruthlessness. Together, they expanded their father's empire globally. But their power brought enemies. The Kinahans made money and enemies. In organized crime, past grievances resurface. The Kinahans ran their criminal enterprise like a well-oiled machine, with each member having a specific role to play. Loyalty was paramount, enforced through a mixture of generosity and intimidation. Those who proved their worth were handsomely rewarded, living lives of luxury funded by the cartel's ill-gotten gains. But betrayal was met with swift and brutal retribution. This sense of family extended beyond blood ties. The Kinahans cultivated a network of associates and enforcers, many drawn from the same Dublin neighborhoods where Christy Kinahan Sr. got his start. These men became the cartel's foot soldiers, carrying out their dirty work on the streets. They trafficked drugs, laundered money, and silenced anyone foolish enough to oppose them. They were the public face of the Kinahan cartel, while the family themselves remained largely hidden from view, operating from luxurious mansions in sun-drenched havens like Spain and Dubai. This approach proved remarkably effective for a time. The Kinahans became a ghost story whispered on the streets of Dublin, their name synonymous with power and fear. But even the most well-constructed facade can crumble. And for the Kinahan cartel, that crumbling would begin with a bullet in a Spanish hotel and ignite a feud that would shake the Irish underworld to its core. At the heart of this sprawling criminal enterprise sits Christy Kinahan Sr., the man the Irish press dubbed the Dapper Don. Born in Dublin in 1958, Christy's early life was a far cry from the opulent world he would come to inhabit. Raised in Crumlin, he turned to petty crime, racking up convictions for car theft and burglary. But Christy wasn't content with being just another small-time crook. He was intelligent, ambitious, and possessed a natural charisma. He saw the heroin trade of the 1980s as his ticket to the big leagues. He started small, building a network of contacts and establishing himself. He understood the drug game was about logistics and strategy. He kept a low profile, avoided risks, and stayed ahead of the authorities. While other gangs fought turf wars, Christie quietly amassed power and wealth. Daniel Kinihan, Christie's eldest son, was groomed from a young age to take over the family business. Born in 1977, Daniel grew up surrounded by the trappings of his father's success. But unlike his younger brother, Christie Jr., who seemed to relish the violent side of the business, Daniel was more interested in the financial and logistical aspects. He was known for his sharp intellect, his ability to analyze complex situations, and his knack for forging alliances with powerful figures in the underworld. Under his leadership, the Kinihan cartel underwent a period of rapid expansion, extending its reach far beyond the streets of Dublin and into mainland Europe, South America, and beyond. Daniel understood that to compete on a global stage, the cartel needed to diversify its portfolio. He forged links with Colombian drug cartels, established money laundering operations in tax havens like Dubai and Panama, and cultivated a network of corrupt officials and businessmen willing to turn a blind eye to their activities. Christie Kinihan Jr., the enforcer. While Daniel was the brains behind the cartel's global expansion, his younger brother, Christie Jr., became known for his ruthlessness and willingness to use violence to protect the family's interests. Born in 1982, Christie Jr. grew up idolizing his father and took to the criminal life like a duck to water. While Daniel preferred to operate from the shadows, Christie Jr. wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. He became known as the cartel's enforcer, responsible for carrying out punishments, settling disputes, and silencing anyone foolish enough to cross the Kinihans. He was linked to numerous acts of violence and intimidation, including murders, kidnappings, and bombings. His reputation for brutality spread fear throughout the criminal underworld, making him a valuable asset to his father and brother. Beyond the Kinihan family itself, the cartel relied on a tight-knit inner circle of trusted associates and lieutenants. These individuals, many of whom had grown up with the Kinihans in Dublin's South Inner City, were responsible for overseeing various aspects of the organization's vast criminal enterprise. There was Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, a notorious gangster known for his short temper and penchant for violence, who oversaw the cartel's operations in the United Kingdom. Liam Byrne, a close confidant of Daniel Kinihan, played a key role in managing the cartel's finances and investments. And Freddie Thompson, a ruthless hitman with a long history of violence, was often called upon to carry out the cartel's dirtiest work. These men, along with countless others, formed the backbone of the Kinihan cartel, their loyalty secured through a mixture of fear, greed, and a twisted sense of loyalty to the family. The bread and butter of the Kinihan cartel, the source of their vast wealth and influence, is the global drug trade, moving tons of cocaine, heroin from Colombia and Morocco into Europe and beyond. They've got their fingers in every pie, from South America and Africa to European cities. Their key to success is adapting and evolving, using sophisticated techniques like concealing drugs in cargo and using corrupt officials, employing private aircraft and vessels. Law enforcement has intercepted shipments worth millions. The scale is staggering, a testament to their reach and laundering the profits. The Kinihans have honed their craft. Section 2, the money trail laundering millions. The Kinihan cartel faces a problem: how to clean that dirty money and make it look legitimate. They can't just waltz into a bank and deposit duffel bags full of cash, so they've become masters of money laundering using shell companies, offshore accounts, and real estate. One of their favorite tactics is investing in real estate. They buy up luxury properties, hotels, and businesses in countries with lax financial regulations, using these assets to legitimize their wealth. But the net is closing in, as international law enforcement agencies are beginning to unravel their complex financial dealings. Section 3. blood on their hands, violence, and intimidation. Let's not kid ourselves, folks. Behind the luxury lies a brutal reality. The Kinahan cartel is violent and ruthless. They've left a trail of blood from Dublin to Spain. Their weapon of choice is often the gun, linked to countless shootings and hits, accused of kidnappings, torture, and intimidation. Violence is their message, reminding everyone who's in charge. Section 1. From Dublin to Dubai, the cartel's global footprint. While the Kinahan cartel's roots are firmly planted in the streets of Dublin, their ambitions have always stretched far beyond the Emerald Isle. Over the past 2 decades, they've transformed themselves from a local Irish gang into a truly global criminal enterprise, with operations spanning continents and tentacles reaching into some of the world's most glamorous and shadowy corners. Their journey from Dublin to Dubai is a testament to their ambition, their ruthlessness, and their ability to exploit the weaknesses of a globalized world. They understood that to compete on the international stage, they needed to go where the money was, where financial regulations were lax, and where they could operate with a degree of impunity. Dubai, with its glittering skyscrapers, luxury hotels, and reputation as a playground for the ultra-wealthy, proved to be the perfect haven. They could blend in with the jet set, launder their money through real estate and other investments, and operate without the same level of scrutiny they faced back home. Section 2, the Spanish connection: sun, sand, and organized crime. The Costa del Sol, with its sunny beaches and bustling ports, provided the perfect cover for drug trafficking and money laundering. The Kinahan's growing influence attracted the attention of Spanish authorities, eager to shed the country's reputation as a haven for organized crime. Section 3, a worldwide web: alliances and collaborations. The Kinahan cartel's rise to global prominence hinged on alliances with other criminal organizations. They secured high-quality cocaine from Colombian cartels and collaborated with the Ndrangheta and Dutch gangs. These partnerships expanded their operations and increased profits, but also brought risks of betrayals and turf wars. Section 4. The price of global influence. The Kinahan cartel's ambition sparked a wave of violence from Dublin to Spain. Their feud with the Hutch gang turned Dublin into a war zone, and their expansion into Spain led to drug-related violence and gangland executions. In the murky world of organized crime, grudges run deep. Gary Hutch, a former Kinahan associate, was gunned down in Spain, igniting a bloody feud. The brazen execution shattered any illusion of peace. The feud plunged the Irish underworld into a cycle of violence. The Kinahan cartel's assassination of Gary Hutch was a declaration of war. The Hutch gang retaliated with a brutal attack at the Regency Hotel in Dublin. The attack left one man dead and marked a turning point in the feud. The Kinahan-Hutch feud escalated into an all-out gang war. The Kinahan-Hutch feud cast a long shadow over Dublin. Innocent bystanders were caught in the crossfire, and communities were torn apart by fear. Law enforcement launched a massive crackdown, but the violence continued. No end in sight. The cycle of violence continues. The Kinahan-Hutch feud raged on, claiming more lives and spreading beyond Ireland. The feud is a stark reminder of the brutal reality of organized crime. Closing the net international crackdown. A global network of law enforcement agencies began sharing intelligence to bring the cartel down. In 2018, Spanish police raided properties linked to the Kinahan cartel, seizing weapons and drugs. The Kinahan leaders, however, remained elusive, fleeing their Spanish mansions. Sanctions and seizures, striking at the cartel's wealth. In April 2022, the U.S. government announced sanctions against the Kinahan cartel, freezing their assets. The sanctions disrupted their financial flows, making it harder to conduct business. Section 3, a new era of cooperation, sharing intelligence, sharing the burden. The crackdown on the Kinihan cartel marked a turning point in the fight against organized crime. It demonstrated the power of international cooperation and the importance of targeting the financial infrastructure of criminal organizations. Section 4, a long way to go, the fight continues. The Kinihan cartel, though weakened, still poses a significant threat. Law enforcement must remain vigilant, continuing to share intelligence and adapt tactics. The Kinihan cartel, once considered invincible, is now facing an unprecedented crisis. International law enforcement has put the Kinihans on the run. Sanctions and asset freezes have disrupted their financial flows, but the cartel's network of loyalists and hidden resources remains intact. The Kinihan cartel's story is a cautionary tale of greed and violence. Their rise left a trail of shattered lives and communities torn apart by fear. Their legacy is one of violence, corruption, and human suffering. Despite recent successes, the battle against the Kinihan cartel is far from over. Law enforcement must remain vigilant and adapt their tactics. The fight against organized crime requires a sustained and multifaceted approach. The fight against the Kinihan cartel is about creating a safer and more just world. It requires the collective efforts of law enforcement, policymakers, and communities. The pursuit of justice is a fight worth fighting to ensure the Kinihan cartel becomes a dark chapter in history.